Units and measurements. We will start with what is physics and what is a physical quantity. What is physics and what is physical quantity? Physical quantity. What is physics? Physics is nothing but the study of laws of the nature from the observed events. Nothing but study of laws of nature from observed events. This is nothing but this study, physics. Now what is a physical quantity? The quantity by means of which we can measure or determine the laws of the physics are called as the physical quantities. The quantities by means of which we can measure or determine the laws of the physics are called as the physical quantities. The physical quantities are of two types. One is fundamental physical quantities. Second one is derived quantities. Fundamental physical quantity or fundamental quantity and a derived quantity. Now what is a fundamental quantity? The quantities which are independent on each other. The quantities which are independent on each other are called as the fundamental quantities. The physical quantities which cannot be further resolved into any other physical quantities are called as the fundamental quantities. There are two definitions for this. One is the quantities which are independent on each other are called as the fundamental quantities. Independent on each other are called as the fundamental quantities. And the second definition is the physical quantities which cannot be further resolved into any other physical quantities. Cannot be further resolved into any other physical quantity called as the fundamental quantities. The fundamental quantities are also called as basic quantities. Now what are the examples for these fundamental quantities? The examples for these fundamental quantities are, there are basically 7 fundamental quantities. They are nothing but, they are length, mass, time, electric current, luminous intensity, thermodynamic temperature, amount of substance. These are the fundamental quantities. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Total 7 fundamental quantities. So what are the fundamental quantities? The physical quantities which cannot be further resolved into any other physical quantities, or the physical quantity which are independent on other physical quantities are called as the fundamental quantities. These are also called as the basic quantities. And the second one is derived quantities. The physical quantities which are dependent on fundamental quantities. The physical quantities which are dependent on the fundamental quantities are called as the derived quantities. This is one definition. Or the second one is the quantities which are derived from the fundamental quantities are called as the derived quantities. The physical quantities which are derived from the fundamental quantities are called as the derived quantities. Now the examples for this are speed, acceleration, force, momentum, etc. These are all nothing but the examples, some of the examples for this fundamental, that's what, derived quantities. So here, now we can able to understand what is a fundamental quantity and what is a derived quantity. A fundamental quantity which cannot be further resolved into any other any other physical quantity, and the derived quantity is nothing but the quantities which are derived from the fundamental quantities. There are 7 fundamental quantities and there are so many derived quantities. So this is about the what is physics and what is physical quantity. Now how we can measure these physical quantities? Here we have just given the names of some of the names of the physical quantities. How we can measure these physical quantities and what are the units for these physical quantities? What are the units for these physical quantities? Now measurement of physical quantities. The measurement of physical quantity or the measure of the physical quantity is nothing but how large or small a physical quantity as compared to the basic standard reference. How large or small a physical quantity is as compared with the basic reference standard. The basic reference standard, I am using the word basic reference standard. This basic reference standard is called as the unit. This is called as the unit. A unit is you can take anything as a unit. You can express anything as a unit. But that should be accepted universally. The thing is, you can write anything as a unit or you may consider anything as a unit. But it should be accepted universally. That is called as a unit. While measuring, you should know 2 points. You should follow 2 points. One is the magnitude of the physical quantity and the units. For example, the distance between the 2 locations is 100 kilometers. Here this 100 is nothing but this magnitude and this is nothing but this unit. Kilometer is the unit. Now the distance is 100 times the kilometer. This is called as the basic reference standard or a unit. 100 times this. This is nothing but the unit and the measurement. How we can measure these fundamental physical quantities or derived physical quantities? How we can measure fundamental or derived physical quantities? Now we will see one by one the fundamental quantities as well as the derived quantities. Units of fundamental and derived quantities. The units of fundamental quantities. Units of fundamental quantities are called as the fundamental units. And the units of the derived quantities are called as the derived units. Now we will see what are the fundamental units. There are 7 fundamental quantities. Now one by one we will see. The first fundamental quantity is mass. Fundamental quantity, units and symbol. First fundamental quantity is mass. For mass, it is kilogram. Units are kilogram and the symbol is kg. Second one is length. Length. Units are meter and the symbol is m. Third, time. Units are second. Units are second, symbol is s. Electric current. Electric current. Ampere. A. Symbol is A. Now, thermodynamic temperature. Thermodynamic temperature. Kelvin. K. Amount of substance. Amount of substance. Mole. Units are mole and the symbol is. And the last one is luminous intensity. Luminous intensity. Units are candela CT. So these are the 7 fundamental quantities with their units and symbols. These are the 7 quantities. And what about the derived quantities? Derived quantities, for example, now I consider the speed. What are the units for this speed? Speed is defined as distance by time. Distance is nothing but this length. That is nothing but a fundamental quantity. So the distance, for distance, the units are nothing but a meter by time is second. So we can write it as meter per second or meter second to the power of minus 1. Meter second to the power of minus 1. Now, what are the units for the force? Force is nothing but mass into acceleration. Mass into acceleration. This is the formula. And what is an acceleration? What is an acceleration? Acceleration is nothing but this velocity by time. And here you can write the units are meter second to the power of minus 1. Displacement by time is called as the velocity. For that also the units are meter second to the power of minus 1. So that here mass is nothing but kg meter second to the power of minus 1. Or simply you can write it as Newton. You can call it as Newton. So this is the unit for the force, Newton. Likewise, we can write the units for the derived quantities. Units for derived quantities. Now the next thing is system of units. System of units. What is this system of units? Now the complete set of units using which we can express both the derived quantities as well as the fundamental quantities. Complete set of units using which we can measure both the fundamental as well as the derived physical quantities. The units system, different system of units are, say first one is CGS. CGS. This is also called as Gaussian system. This is also called as Gaussian system. And in which C is nothing but the centimeter, G is nothing but gram, S stands for second. S stands for second. Centimeter, gram, gr, second, yes. So these are the which are used to measure the fundamental quantities. What are these? Centimeter per length, gram per mass, and second per time. So these are the units we are using to measure these fundamental quantities. And another system of unit is MKS. MKS. This is in this M stands for meter, M stands for meter, K stands for kilogram, and S stands for second. And here meter is corresponding to the length, kilogram mass, second for time. So using these we can express or measure the fundamental quantities, meter, kilogram and second. And there is a third system which is called as FPS system. FPS system. Here this system is also called as British system. This is also called as British system. In this British system, F stands for foot. Now FT, foot. P stands for pound, LB, and S stands for second. S stands for second. Now these are the fundamental quantities. Now this foot is for length, pound is for mass, second is for time. So likewise we measure the different fundamental units using the different systems. And there is one more system which is called as the system of international system, SI system, international system. The fourth one is international system. Now that is SI system. In SI system, it is a modernized and extended form of CGS and MKS systems. This system contains 7 fundamental quantities. See, here I am using this system contains 7 fundamental quantities. In addition to this, there are 2 more quantities are added. Now what is SI system? SI system is nothing but the international system, and this is a modernized and extended form of MKS and CGS systems. MKS and CGS system, extended form of metric system like CGS and MKS systems, in which there are 7 fundamental physical quantities, and in addition to these 7 fundamental physical quantities, 2 more quantities are added. They are nothing but one is plane angle, and the second one is solid angle. Plane angle and the solid angle. Now what are the units for the plane angle and what are the units for the solid angle? Now here you can write. Now 8 is plane angle. For plane angle, it is nothing but what is a plane angle? It is nothing but this. The length of the arc is equal to the radius of the circle. It is called as the plane angle, and the units are nothing but this radian. And the symbol is nothing but RAD. Radians. It is nothing but radians. And the ninth one is the solid angle. This is solid angle. And the units for this solid angle are steradian. Steradian. SR. Symbol is nothing but SR. Steradian. SR. Now, with this we have completed what is physics, what are physical quantities, types of physical quantities, and fundamental units, derived units, different system of units.